Today's episode is brought to you by Hidden House Coffee. Go check out their locations here in Orange County, California, or get some coffee delivered to your house at hiddenhousecoffee.com. What's up, guys? This is Jordan from the Good Dude, Good Dad podcast. Welcome. I'm in my original podcast space, but this has also become my I messed up space. As we were recording, I completely messed up the footage of Ben and I. And so when you're watching this episode, you're only going to see one angle, and that's going to be of our guest, Dan. Dan is a good dude, a good dad, the founder of the NA Beverage Company, and we're so excited to have him on. I hope you enjoy. Welcome back to the Good Dude, Good Dad podcast. You just heard that because I'm cracking a cold one of NA.
It's a seltzer, non-alcoholic.
Seltzer, non-alcoholic. We are here with Dan today. He is a special guest of ours. I met Dan actually at our church, and he started the NA company. How long ago, Dan?
I'd say it's about probably like 2 years now.
2 years ago?
Also, Dan, what's your last name? I don't even know.
Choi. C-H-O-I, yeah.
Sorry, I didn't use the full name. I'm Jordan. This is Ben.
We're reverse introing today because we're cracked out on non-alcoholic drinks.
Let's go.
But dude, thank you again so much for coming out. We're always so appreciative of people that make the time for this, because we as we were talking kind of offline, like obviously everyone's busy. This is passion projects, but we genuinely, we say it every episode. People are probably going to get so tired of me saying it, but we think there's a need for this. And we don't think, we know there's a need for this. And actually one of the podcast episodes I want to do, which is Jordan and I, is go over those statistics of homes without men or fatherhood statistics and all that other fun stuff. But that's kind of what gets us going. But dude, thank you for coming out. I'm excited to drink this. This one is, they're organic, non-GMO, gluten-free, vegan. Not that much sugar. And what else do I need to find?
Dan's going to tell us all about it. We have these at the cafe. Actually, we have the non-alcoholic beer at the cafe.
We do. Yep.
Which is super awesome. I absolutely love it. But Dan, we were at church one day, and he told me what he was doing, and then was like, "Hey, can we get this at the cafe?" And I was like, "Dude, 100%, let's go for it." Yeah. And ever since then, I've been stoked on NA. Been going hard. But Dan, thank you for coming. And yeah.
Well, I'll tell you a little bit more about that drink since you're drinking it. So the way we approach these mocktails is they're functional, but we have different functions for different occasions because we wanted to make a mocktail that would a mocktail for all occasions. Most mocktails you have, they're like if they have adaptogens and nootropics in it, or nootropics. I can never say the word right. Do you guys know? Is it nootropic or nootropic?
I think nootropic.
Nootropic.
I think.
I would say nootropic because I'm thinking neuro.
I know, but tropic, like
I don't know.
tropical.
Don't ask me.
I don't know either. So, and I'm supposed to know. It's a tomato. Yeah. So most of them are just like calming, and I think that's a good place to start.
Yeah.
But what we wanted to do was create a mocktail for all occasions, and so the one you're drinking think of that as like a clean energy drink. It's mellow. It's only got 50 milligrams of caffeine, which is half a cup of coffee, as you guys know. But it's also balanced with L-theanine. If you guys know, like L-theanine is a part of green tea. It's got adaptogenic and nootropic benefits to it. So there are some properties that will help you manage stress, but also increase mental clarity and focus. So it complements caffeine well in that it takes out some of the jitters out of it.
Yeah.
It also has lion's mane mushroom. Lion's mane's good for mental clarity and focus. So I like to drink this drink when I want to tune in, especially in the afternoon. If I can't drink another cup of coffee, I'll go for one of these. And also, it's never like too late to drink that. So if you're going to train later, you just want like a little bit of a boost, but you don't want to get cracked out on a Celsius. Highly recommend this drink. We call it Further. Yeah.
No, I like this, man. And I'm excited for you to share your story. But before we even jump in, one, I've been into using functional and adaptogens for a while now. So every single first cup of coffee in the morning is the Four Sigmatic. I think they call it their immunity blend. So it's got like chaga, lion's mane, reishi, and cordyceps, I think.
Yep.
But I've been super into these functional components because of my health and my background of, dealing with PTSD and coming out of the Marine Corps and, the VA being so quick to just be like, oh, here's pills. here, do this, do that. And then obviously, as we know, a lot of us guys or girls that have dealt with any type of trauma, you don't do what they say. You go to alcohol, right? Because sometimes it's like your only, I don't want to use coping as the word, but for a lot of people, it is your coping, right? For me, it wasn't about coping. It was, dude, I almost died so many times, so I'm going to just chug as much alcohol and live my life because it's cool, because I can, you know? And I just had this conversation with some Santa Ana cops this morning about my past and my background, and they were like, there's no way. Like, you're so mellow and so calm. I was like, I am now. But I was like, I didn't understand what alcohol would do to me. And even still to this day, man, I have a margarita and the next day I'm like, my joints hurt because my wife and I don't drink that much. So when we do have a drink, it's like, I feel it. I'm like, oh my gosh. So when you go without alcohol for a long time and then you have spurts of like having a drink, you realize how bad it is for you.
Oh yeah.
Like,
it's literally poison.
Yes.
Yeah, I think I'm going to botch the science, but you know, everyone kind of points back to this Andrew Huberman episode that came out about a year and a half ago. Have you guys heard that one?
Yeah.
It's effects of alcohol. Yeah.
I've only done 50% of it, but yeah.
It's kind of long,
Yeah.
but like one of the takeaways is alcohol is poison.
Yeah.
Any amount of alcohol is bad for you, not just like, you know, oh, I only drink one drink a day, which is how I used to drink.
Yeah.
Just one drink a day. That's fine. Sometimes 2 drinks a day. And then on top of that, he also says, okay, well, or you might say, I only drink once a week. But once a week, he actually pointed out that that's actually chronic drinking also.
I could see that.
And it could lead to alcoholism.
Yeah.
As well as some of the warning signs of alcoholism. So if you are starting to become overly dependent on alcohol, and when you start drinking alcohol, the natural reaction is actually for you to have an allergic reaction. So you feel sick.
Yep.
Some people turn red and itchy.
I turn red. The Asian glow.
The Asian glow, bro.
Dude, we're not designed to have alcohol. Like,
but here's the thing, though. Most human beings aren't supposed to. Actually, all human beings are not designed to have alcohol. And when we digest it, you know, again, I'm going to botch the science, but if your body digests this toxin, and then it creates another toxin to help digest that toxin, and then it creates another thing. I think it's called like a acetaldehyde. To actually cope with it. And this is like, it does all this, it just wrecks your body, and your body has so much stress trying to just process the alcohol.
Yeah.
And that's where the hangovers come in. That's where kind of like, you know, you get tired, your immune system gets compromised, as well as like mentally also you get tired. So any amount is bad. Chronic could be as little as once a week.
Yeah.
And that's also bad. And so there's really no safe amount of alcohol that you could be drinking. And so the world is starting to like come to terms with that. And, you know, you probably saw like the U.S. Surgeon General actually issued a warning that said, hey, you know what? We want to put these labels on bottles now and cans of alcohol. So it's kind of like the label you get on cigarettes.
I'd say it's going to be the new cigarette in probably like a few years.
Correct.
Yeah.
So a lot of people are also saying that alcohol is about to have its big tobacco moment.
Yeah.
And so imagine a world where right now, I used to smoke cigarettes, which it sounds crazy.
Yeah.
But
I did too.
I smoked for like 10 years.
Yeah.
And now, like, if you're even going outside here and you saw someone smoking a cigarette in front of the coffee shop or anywhere, can you imagine someone smoking a cigarette in front of your like kid's school or something like that? You'd be like, what are you doing? You might even like get in a fight with that person. Think like, what are you doing to yourself? What are you doing to the people around you? It's like that shunned. Like, can you imagine a world where you walk by a bar with a lot of people just getting loaded and you're saying, like, man, why would you do that to yourself? It's just not good for you. Don't you know that stuff causes cancer?
Yeah.
Don't you know this stuff kills more people than tobacco does?
Yep.
It's kind of wild.
It is weird because it's also interesting on the flip side. And we can have this argument for so many different things, but a lot of people will say there's positives to like red wine, right?
Yeah.
For blood flow and circulation. After my mom went through her crazy heart, she had like a super gnarly, unexpected, basically a heart reconstruction surgery.
Yeah.
And after, for the recovery, because she's on so many blood medications, the doctor wanted her to drink a glass of red wine a day. And because of like the benefits, the antioxidants, all these things. But then you can go on the flip side of that argument and find the exact opposite research, right? So it's like, it's kind of crazy that we're living in a world also where you don't know what the heck you can believe.
Yep.
Because you can find the same argument on both sides for whatever you're trying to
And you'll
argue.
find people argue the other side of the case too.
Yeah.
And say, well, alcohol, like, what is this again? Like, now he's saying that alcohol is bad for us.
Yeah.
You know, they just got done telling me that, you know, I needed to get a vaccine for COVID,
Yeah.
you know, or else I was going to die. Right?
Yeah,
Or
and
post-
seeing how that's doing.
Exactly. So it's like it's like it's hard, especially when you identify with it.
Yeah.
Oh,
And so what I find is that the more you identify with alcohol, the more you'll take that stance that it's like not bad for you.
Right.
And I'll see this in prime examples, like when we're trying to get our products into some breweries, or actually even in the beginning when we wanted to ask brewers if they would like be willing to make a non-alcoholic beer for us. We get different reactions. Some people would be open-minded. Like
Yeah.
the guys that actually partner up with us were super open-minded. Rome Beer Company in San Clemente know a lot. But then there's definitely some discussions where I would like give our non-alcoholic beer to someone who was a beer aficionado.
Yeah.
And I knew it was good non-alcoholic beer. I mean, you guys have tried it. I'm like,
Yeah.
that's pretty freaking close. That's good.
Yeah.
And they just could not wrap their head around it. And I was like, dude, I drank a lot of beer in my life. This is pretty freaking good and close. They're like, no, I just don't like X, Y, and Z. And I was like, so why are you drinking beer?
Yeah.
If you're only drinking beer because you like the taste, this is great beer.
Yeah.
But if you're drinking beer because you want to get buzzed and you want to get loaded, that's a whole different thing.
For sure.
And that's something you got to come to terms with yourself about. And then you can't say you don't like the beer because it doesn't get you drunk, because then you're drinking beer because you want to get drunk.
Yeah.
That's a problem, right?
For
Or
sure.
that could be
It's
a
like,
problem.
bro, you drink Natty Light. I know this tastes better than Natty Light by a long shot. You know, like, get out of here.
To be honest with you, I don't know if Jordan ever told you this or if I told you this when I met you. I didn't get it. Jordan was like, hey, I got a buddy at church. Can we please carry his product? I want it in the cafe. And usually I tell Jordan, I'm like, yeah, do whatever you want. You're the one running it. You know, if you think it's a fit, it's a fit. And then I was like, what is it? And he's like, oh, it's an NA beer. And I literally said, what is that? I honestly, I know it sounds stupid, but
I wasn't going to call you out on that.
no, I'm calling myself out.
I was going to let it slide.
Yeah, I can make fun of myself. That's cool.
Yeah.
But he was like, NA, non-alcoholic. And I literally said, I was like, well, what's the point of that?
I get that a lot.
And,
yeah.
and I was being honest. I was genuinely asking a question because for me, I guess some beer I think tastes good. Some doesn't. But I didn't understand it. And I was like, do you think people will actually buy non-alcoholic beer? And he goes, there's a market for it. It's getting bigger. And Jordan being Jordan, he's like, but honestly, I just want to do it because I want to help my friend out.
Yep.
I was like, okay, great. But then I remember trying like these things, and I was like, oh, dude, these are delicious.
Yeah.
But again, just to be honest, I was one of those, not skeptic, because if you're an alcoholic and you need an outlet, I get it.
Yep.
But for me, that stems even a little further of like, if you're an alcoholic still drinking non-alcoholic beer, I think you need to do a little bit more work, if I'm being honest.
Yeah.
To get to a point where you don't even need that.
Yep.
But if it helps, great. You know, like, I think there's tools for that as well.
Yeah.
But I don't want to get too far into the pod before you get to actually introduce yourself.
Yeah.
Tell us about you. Obviously, we know you do NA. I was an idiot and didn't know what NA meant. But now it's a pleasure to get to have you.
Yeah.
And, just tell us about yourself and how you even got to to NA.
Yeah, I mean, obviously I'm the founder of the NA Beverage Company, but just kind of backing up into that. How did I even get there, right? It's like, because I'm not a food and beverage guy. I'm not a beer brewer. I don't make mocktails. I would say about 3 years ago, I got sober. I can tell a little bit more about that in a second. But, my whole life, ever since I could start drinking, I've been drinking.
Okay.
And it's, people used to know me as like Danimal. I'm like, but like when I would drink, I was always like life of the party, happy-go-lucky. That's why no one ever said no one would be like, Dan's got a drinking problem.
Right.
Because I wasn't sitting here like kicking over trash cans, getting in fights with people, right? I would just be the fun guy, everyone wanted to be around you because you're fun and you got a little crazy, but we kept it cool.
Yeah.
So that's it. And then I had a job, I was progressing in that. I used to do technology consulting work.
Okay.
And then that led into the last thing I did was mergers and acquisitions. So what we would do is work with like private equity firms and things like that. And when they wanted to buy a company, we would come in and help with the transaction by diligencing. But basically, I was a tech guy, right? And then working in the corporate world, did that for over 20 years, and it was great, right? It was what I thought God wanted in my life. But in that, if I think about it, let me relate this to my relationship with alcohol. Like alcohol was always a part of my life, ever since high school. When I first started drinking, at the time was like wine coolers and stuff like that.
Four Locos.
Actually, back then it was Zimas and Bartle and James.
Oh, Bartle and James. I remember that.
I'm a little older than you guys. Yeah. The MD Mad Dog 2020s.
Yeah.
And then a lot of, we thought we were rappers at the time, so we're drinking like Old English.
I say Old English,
yes.
the 40s.
OEs.
Did you play Edward 40 Hands?
Edward 40.
Yeah.
So yeah, a lot of drinking. And then in college was just even more drinking, right? So it was just like, it's just what we did. And then like all my friends were like, what do we have in common? It was like, we drink, right?
Yeah.
And so after I graduated, now I'm making money and I'm drinking, right? And I can have more money to spend on drinking, like happy hours. I left my house. Now I had disposable income. And then, it's just like when I look back at it, I was like, oh my gosh, I was always drinking. And then I was drinking a lot too. So like at one point, I lived in New York City for about 5 years. And as you can imagine, living in New York City, those are spiritually dark times for me. But I was going out a lot, right?
Yeah.
And it was like classic Thursday night, you would go out hard. Friday night, you would go out hard. Saturday, you'd be rallying, remember the rallying where you're just like, we got to go out. There's this party or this thing, and you're just trying to drink a beer and it just tastes like glass. And then you're like, you've got problems when you're like, hey, you know what? If I drink enough of these, I'll get over this moment and I'll be drunk again. Mm-hmm. And then it's Sunday. Sunday comes and you're just like, what did I do for the last 4 days? Why do I feel so bad? And you're just dreading Monday when you have to go back to work, right? So anyways, again, this all seemed very normal.
Yeah.
Like standing in line. Do you remember when you used to like go to a bar and used to stand 5 people deep to get a drink
Yeah.
Yes.
that you were overpaying for?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And then when you went up there, you didn't want to do it again. So you'd be like, give me 2 shots, give me a Corona and a double Jack and Coke.
Yeah, you
Because I
can't
don't want
have
to
it
come
all.
back.
Yeah.
You're just going pop, 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 pop. And then
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then you end up going back.
Yeah. And you still end up going back.
it was wild. Anyways, so, that was my life until I got married. Met my wife in New York. We moved from New York to Manhattan Beach. And, like wedding. I still remember the wedding too, but I don't because what do they tell you when you do your wedding? Don't drink too much.
Yeah.
What did this guy do? Drink my face off, right? Don't remember like the second half of it. I did all those things. I spent a lot of money on that wedding, bro.
Yeah.
For something you don't really remember.
Yeah.
But everyone had so much fun. Everyone talked about how drunk they were, all of those things. But still, when I look back at it, I was like, yeah, I probably would have done that a little bit differently, considering it was my wedding night. Anyway, so, the kids started coming. Jordan, I've got 5 kids now.
You have 5
Yeah.
kids?
5 children.
Do you think we have it rough?
Snaps.
We got a couple.
5? I need to take a sip of this
And
drink.
remind me, how old is your oldest?
Oldest is 12.
Youngest.
Youngest is 2. Yeah. So
Right, dude?
Yeah.
I know.
Wow.
So now you see why I'm sober.
Oh,
Yeah.
I have to be on it
Oh, yes.
100% all the
I'd
time.
have like 10 of these a day.
Yeah, so we started having kids, and it was just the same thing. You just like maybe drink a little bit less or in like different situations. So
Yeah.
it's like I'm drinking at home now, right? And I'll have like 1 or 2 drinks. But then like, it starts slow. It's catching up. And I didn't realize at the time, but like there were parts of my career where I was like trying to get through these humps and promotions that I thought meant the world to me. And I would have like these mini like anxiety attacks and like panic attacks. And I never really thought about it. When I look back at it now, I'm like, oh, man, that alcohol didn't help.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? If I were really, I mean, there's other causes to it, but like having all that anxiety from alcohol and poor mental health definitely didn't help. So anyways, I went through that. So instead of like raging every weekend, you would have like once a month and then once a quarter or twice a year.
Yeah.
But I would have some big nights still. And I did that for a while, leading up to, the last few years. So about 3 years ago, at our church, we do every January we do like 28 days of prayer and fasting. And so like I had been praying a lot about like, hey, God, what's your plans for my life? Because I thought I achieved all this success, all the things that the world tells me they want to do. I was making good money. I was a partner at this firm I was at, all that kind of stuff. But I just didn't feel like this was my purpose in life.
Yeah.
And I just felt like God had, specced out this, this sounds weird, but I feel like I was like a sports car or something like that, some finely tuned automobile that God created, but like the way I was using it in life was to like go to the grocery store.
Okay.
I felt underutilized, and I just feel like I wasn't like realizing my purpose.
Yeah.
And so, interestingly, God answered those prayers. And, one of the first things I did was I got sober. So he delivered me from my addiction to alcohol. And I can say that very clearly now when I look back at it. But at the time I was like, I just drink sometimes, no problem.
Yeah.
But now that I've been sober for 3 years, I was like, I was addicted to alcohol, 100%. Because I thought I needed it. Sometimes I'd be in a bad mood if I didn't have it. And then when I put it in my system, I thought I became a better person.
Interesting.
Literally like my emotions would light up. I would be more functional. These are signs of alcoholism, by the way. So first that happened. And then I was sober. And then a year later, I got laid off my job. And it was devastating. This
During
was after
COVID?
No, this was right after COVID, about a year after COVID.
Okay.
Yeah. A year or two after COVID, actually. So the first year after COVID, this is where I realized I was starting to have a problem too. COVID, remember, everything was shut down.
Yeah.
So when we came back, it was like everyone was making up for lost time, including me. And then the drinking went up. So if you look at like stats of alcohol-related deaths, there was like an alcohol spike during COVID, but alcohol-related deaths went up after COVID. It's because everyone was drinking and they're out again, right? Yeah. And this was like excluding COVID in that data. So anyways, that's what I was living. So that was the first year, like the work conferences were back on. So I went to Vegas, and it's been closed for 2 years. What do you think I'm doing there? Making up for lost time. We're doing the events. It's all expense to budgets. And then we're going to the clubs afterwards.
Yeah.
On expense budgets. We had a big event at my old company in Scottsdale. It was bad, like a lot of alcohol. And our company, the old company I was at, just went through a transaction, meaning it got acquired by another firm. So when that happens and you have some equity, you get paid. So everyone was just like, I'll put this in perspective for you. And we can, I don't mind sharing this, but I woke up one night from that thing, and I looked at this receipt in my pocket, and then it said, guess how much it was?
I don't even want to know.
It was $30,000
Oh my gosh.
from a club in Scottsdale.
That you paid?
It was on my credit card.
Oh my gosh.
So I was unfortunate enough to open up the bill at a table. The entire company ended up coming and put all the drinks on that night on the company's credit card. And I was so drunk. I don't even, like, you should have seen the signature.
Yeah.
They actually, I remember this. I don't know why. I don't really black out when I'm that drunk, but I can remember some things. And I remember them when it was being signed, because I couldn't sign it. Someone else filled out like the tip and all that stuff for me. And then they were like, are you sure? And I was like, huh? Okay, can you sign this again?
Yeah.
Because I think they knew they were going to potentially have some issues. And I called them the next day. I was like, dude, what is this?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, anyways, so like there's a series of rock bottom moments is my point. At a company holiday party, I was like the drunkest guy there. My wife was pissed at me. Series of rock bottom moments in that year leading up to me, God delivering me from alcohol addiction, right? And that's sometimes like everyone that has that kind of story. And then a year later, I got laid off my job. And then instead of freaking out after getting laid off my job, I'm like, huh, is God answering these prayers right now? And so, I was like at a Zion worship thing. And then like the first thing was like, Joey could tell like something's heavy on me. And he like prophesied over me. He's like, I see you starting a business. And I was like, wow. That's great. I've always wanted to do that. And so my next questions were like, well, what's the business?
Right.
Very practical, right?
Right.
So, it's interesting the way God talks is like through green lights in my life. It's like, he'll just like give you a series of green lights and be like, yep, boom, boom, boom. Or he'll like say the same thing in 3 different ways or through people or situations or stuff like that. And so, out of my Zion men's group at the time when we used to meet, I think you've been there once or twice when we used to meet at Jeff's back in the day, started this idea. Craig Knox from our church named it the NA Beverage Company and started trying to make hop waters and non-alcoholic beer. That's where we started. And so it's kind of wild when I think about how that all started to like where we are today. We've got non-alcoholic beers that I think actually taste good. And we've got these 4 functional mocktails that are clearly differentiated in the market. 2 weeks ago, we did a trade show called Expo West.
Yeah.
Expo West is like the Super Bowl of natural foods expos.
I was supposed to go.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
Of course. We had a booth there and we had a really good reception. We were doing weird stuff like praying over the booth. I was like, bro, man, God brought me this far. You think, what do you mean? Like, I mean, I like, you don't think he's going to take you the rest of the way?
Yeah.
So it was like, and I was like, I don't care what these people think. We're praying over this booth.
Yeah.
And so we would do like saying like kooky stuff, like praying Whole Foods rolls through and Target and this and that. And it was like, look who came through. We got these leads, like literally, Target, Whole Foods, 7-Eleven, Kroger, Bristol Farms, GoPuff, Sprouts, like all the leads. It was almost too much, to be honest, because someone our size, like it's hard. You can't, you can't even satisfy that demand, especially not at a national level. But so it's kind of crazy. But then when I look back at it, I'm just like, holy smokes, this thing was like born out of a thought that was spoken through somebody through these series of situations. And, I kind of gleaned over like a year and a half of like basically all these green lights along the way, which are nothing short of miracles to getting to this point. And to me, sitting here right now talking to you about it and you having the drink in your hand and saying, hey, this is pretty good.
That's so cool.
Yeah. So
That's crazy, man.
Yeah.
I'm stuck on $30,000. I mean, you said a lot of things, and
that's wild.
I kind of want to go dig into that a little bit too, because we talk a lot about not just like obviously victories, right? We talk a lot about struggles and obstacles. Like a $30,000 bill. What happened to you at work?
It was so wild. Like it was so egregious and shameful when I think about it.
Yeah, I mean that's pretty gnarly.
That is a lot of alcohol, and that's not only like an amount of alcohol. That's like the most expensive alcohol you can think of. This is literally rapper style Ace of Spade Magnums that cost $10,000 or whatever, or $5,000, and like people literally so drunk they're dropping them on accident. Oh my goodness! Or sticking them. I don't know. Might as well put it on the pod. Like, you know what a shoey is?
No.
Yeah.
Have you ever seen someone do a
chugging out of a drink or shoe? I mean,
have you ever drank? Yeah. But can you imagine doing that with Ace of Spades champagne?
No.
Because you think it's funny?
No.
Oh, jeez.
It's just like when you're drunk. Oh yeah,
you do anything.
You definitely. Well, let's go back to the Hagemann podcast.
Yeah.
Why do we lose? Why do what are some of the benefits of alcohol? It's like it reduces the part of my, brain that it controls my impulses and judgment. And so I just basically just say whatever I want, do whatever I want. I don't have there's no filter. The filter is removed because literally alcohol suppresses that. And that's why we make bad decisions when we're drunk.
Yeah.
That's why we do things we regret when we're drunk. And that's why we say stupid things we don't regret. And that's why you might accidentally spend $30,000 at a bar.
Yeah.
Hey guys, quick break. This is Jordan with Good Dude, Good Dad. Huge shout out to our sponsor, Hidden House Coffee. Get 15% off your next order by going to hiddenhousecoffee.com and using the code GDGD15. It'll be in the details and description down below. Make sure you subscribe, and a huge shout out to Rode as well. Now back to the show.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I liked, like in the story too, like you were saying that in the beginning, you're like, everybody liked being around me because I was like the life of the party, that's real. It's real easy to look at somebody when they have a drinking problem and they get angry and they want to fight and stuff like that.
That was me.
That was Ben, and I was kind of the polar opposite. When I drank, like I was fun. Like everybody was like, oh yeah, Jordan's like a fun little dude. He becomes an even more fun little dude, the little leprechaun when he's all drunk. Everyone thinks he's awesome and he's a good time and he wants to pay for people's drinks and spending money I didn't have because Good Time Charlie is always there when you need him. And you can still be, we've talked about it before. You can still have that issue and be showing up on Sunday and praise and worship and raising your hands and praying over people. And then, there's a complete disconnect of like, there's nothing wrong with that, and it's so cool that you had that perspective now looking back at it, that you're like, hey, like you had a problem with it. But you were functioning perfectly fine. And to most people, you'd be like, "Oh, Dan doesn't really drink. He just drinks on occasion. He's like a
social drinker.
Yeah, he's almost like a C&E Christian, but for drinking.
Exactly.
He's a Christmas and Easter drinker.
Yeah.
And yeah, dude. But it's so cool that you're like, I see that now, and I notice it, and I know that God has a purpose and plan for my life, and He could take something that was I heard this awesome saying that's like the thing that you struggle the most with is actually what qualifies you the most to be a spokesman for that. And it's like it took something that for you was, I don't know, maybe your struggle or not, but alcoholism or drinking alcohol, and now he's reworked it and reframed it to use it to be the NA company, and now you're over at trade shows praying over booths for a non-alcoholic and adaptogen, company.
It's
Dude,
wild.
It's just so cool.
And just to like think about where it's going to go from here. Like, because when we did that trade show, it was, I kept saying this to the team. We're like, hey, just remember, this is going to be the NA Beverage Company before Expo West, and this is what it is after. And what it's been after has just been like this validation thing.
Yeah.
Hey, you know what? This is a real thing. The time is now. And like, I was always all in on it because again, like the NA Beverage Company to me was something God told me to do. Right. So I was like, okay, cool. I'm going to be obedient. So I was always all in, but now it was like, I don't know. It was just when companies like Target come to your booth and try your drinks just the way they did, the buyer for Target, and they're like, these are really good.
Yeah.
Let's talk. Usually you're going out and like chase, you're trying to stalk them. And like, hey, come on over. These guys were coming to us. They were like, hey, what's going on here? I don't know why, like our booth had an aura to it. And when you've been there, you go there, you're just like, oh, this is like, you can tell where all the corporate booths are. You're like, okay, these guys are well funded. That's a nice product. It tastes okay. It's got, they got the hired booth girls in there, pouring the drinks, stuff like that. It's like, but when you came to our booth, people were like, oh man, what's going on there? There's like it's not like we had a fancy booth. Right, I literally like put it together with like freaking zip ties and stuff, like that I painted these things. Anyway, it looked nice when it was all done, but just because I just feel like that we could, like our authenticity and our drive and our passion, it just came through. And everyone said this, I love the energy from that booth.
That's cool.
And then they drank the drinks. And then they, some people say like water has memory. Like, all these things are super intentional when we made these things.
Yeah.
Like, we're literally like, this sounds, again, kooky, but Blake is the one who formulates these things. Mm-hmm. I'm like, Blake, don't mess around, bro. You need to pray over these drinks before you start. Like, this is what we're doing. Pray as you're like formulating them and figuring out the right ratios of this or that or putting this together. Because nothing we're doing on our own is on our own. And so I told that to somebody once and they're like, oh my gosh, I can tell. Because water has memory. And I was like, yeah.
Dude, that's so awesome.
It's kind of wild, but dude,
no,
it's
I
like,
love it.
do we believe this or not?
Yeah.
Heck yeah. Like, otherwise I wouldn't be here right now. You would be dead. I would be dead.
Yeah.
I don't know where you would be.
Probably
but
dead.
Yeah.
Exactly. Like, you know how many times I almost also died?
Yeah.
It's like, not like in your story exactly, but like, there's so many times I was like, dang, I really should be dead.
Right.
Or in jail or something crazy. Yeah. The amount of times I've driven without remembering how I got to where I got.
Yeah.
Because of alcohol. Almost every bad story that I have post Marine Corps is alcohol.
Yeah.
Almost every single one.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a group of friends to this day. They're like, dude, you were our DD, our drunk driver, because you were the best drunk driver. And I was like, I look back at that and I was like, that's so sad. But they're near misses in our life.
Yeah. The reality of that statement, though, is that is more people than we know. Like for you, Dan, you were, let's call it what it is, right? You were a functioning alcoholic. Mm-hmm. And for me, it was 3 years of this for my life. So not a big span, but still I did enough damage in 3 years to last a lifetime, right?
Yeah.
Those 3 years, I was 1,000,000% a functioning alcoholic, but I never thought I had a problem. It was always because I wanted to, right? Or I want to do this. But clearly it was me trying to deal with my own PTSD issues.
Yeah.
But alcohol, just like porn, is such a heavy vice in the world that people like to shy away for it or from it, not for it, from it, because it's not a big deal, right? Oh, I only have a beer a day.
Yeah.
Or I only go out on Fridays and then I'm dad on Saturdays.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, dude, if you have to say I only do, it means you're justifying in some way. And I think alcohol, outside of, like I said, porn, is probably arguably one of the more controlling substances or vices that people use.
Like, life is just so hard already.
Yeah.
Like we just go through the day and like, I'm glad you brought up porn, right? Because it's like, you'll try to spend your entire day saying, don't look at that, don't click on that thing, don't have that, you're but it's like when you're tired at the end of the day, you're just like, oh man, your defenses are down. And so if I add something else to myself that's going to further bring my defenses down, which is literally alcohol, it's just a slippery slope. And that was the hard realization that I had. Because for a while, so let's talk about drugs, right? Because I would be an occasional cocaine user.
Oh, shoot. Okay.
Right? So like, let's just throw it out there and be like, but where did that come from? You don't just walk into a place and say, yeah, I'm going to rip some lines.
Yeah.
You know where it started? It started with the alcohol, man.
Yeah, because it boosts you back up.
It boosts me back up, but the alcohol messed with my decision-making skills. And this is where smoking is the same thing.
Yeah.
You and I both smoked, but when I would bum a cigarette, when I've been drinking, man.
Oh, 100%.
Like, I see you smoking a cigarette, so I was like, let me bum one. And
even when I stopped smoking, you'd start drinking and be like, no, it sounds really good right now?
A cigarette.
And any other time, you'd be like, that's
Exactly.
disgusting. Like, you're like,
and then the next day, you're like, why did I do that?
Yeah.
Why did I smoke that cigarette?
oh, God.
Oh, and then you're coughing and stuff. So, replace cigarette with, a narcotic or pornography.
Cocaine's a big one for alcohol.
Yeah.
And is it cocaine that's like the rich drug they call it, or like the
Dude, cocaine was
the party
when
drug
I was
or-
in. So I started off at Dana Hills High School. That was a huge problem.
Yeah.
because it was like the upper
problem.
like,
Yeah, there's kids with parents' credit cards that just had a lot of money. I mean, South Orange County has a huge, I think they still do, had a huge cocaine problem, a massive one.
Crazy.
But it was like we were talking about it actually on our last podcast. It's that same thing we had talked about where men, we're compression bottles, man. And when you're feeling overly stressed, like 90% of people, I'm sure, drink alcohol at the end of the day. Why? Because they want to relax after work.
Yes.
Right? They're overly stressed out. They're looking for something. They're looking for someone. They're looking for a release. And that release to come down off the pressure is alcohol.
That's right.
It's chewing tobacco. It's pornography.
Yes.
It's that escape. You're trying to escape.
Shopping.
You're shopping. You're trying to escape that reality for just a minute to give yourself reprieve. And it's like,
You want that dopamine hit, bro.
yeah, you
It's
just
the
want to feel
dopamine hit.
numb for a second.
Yep.
Even the dopamine hit.
That's the dopamine's big.
It's a dopamine hit at the end of the day. But what's weird is like, here's the thing why we're always working on ourselves, right? Because I've replaced these negative dopamine hits with not so negative dopamine hits. So it's like, it's hard to say because at the end of the day, like I'm still worshiping idols. So I'm still working on that. You know what I mean? But at least it's not like, I mean, again, I don't know if this is a justification, but this is the idea of being spiritually poor always, even though I'm sober now, I'm not righteous, right? I still have issues. But alcohol was the root cause to a lot of things. So therefore, God delivered me from my alcohol addiction. Because again, it was back to the cigarettes or the cocaine. It was like, well, next time I drink, I'm just not going to do that again.
Yeah.
I was like, well, hold on. It's the drinking that got you to that. Cool. Now I'm not drinking. So we're still looking for the dopamine hits in our life.
Right.
And so now my dopamine hits are like
Jiu-jitsu,
surfing, cookies.
Okay.
Yeah.
But I was crushing some cookies
So
yesterday.
did Jordan.
I was just stress eating. I was stress eating on some cookies.
Yo, I just want to say I've been so good. My wife has been begging me to make cookies for like the last week and a half, and I'm like, yo, I'm trying to get fit, so no, I'm not making cookies.
Good for you, bro.
Because as soon as I make them, I'm eating the whole thing.
Dude,
There's it's all or nothing.
I was because I've been stressed out after Expo West, like dealing with like different things, and we're trying to do a fundraise right now too. So I'm like I was just working all day, and I'm like, I go to the kitchen, I'm like, and my wife made cookies. So I'm like, I just have one. Oh, no, that one's broken. It's kind of ugly. I'm gonna eat that one too.
Oh, dude.
And I said, no, I have 4 cookies.
That replacement
So
though
funny.
of
But is that bad? I don't know.
I think that replacement of the pressure release, we all are going to have stressors in our life. We're all going to have those pressures. I don't think there's ever going to come a time where you're just so, Buddha zened out that like life is just like, yeah, whatever, man. At that point, you're probably stoned off your butt the entire time. But it's replacing those habits with habits that serve you, you know? Like you said, when you're feeling very, very stressed out, surfing, connects you with God and nature and the water, and helps positive for me lately. I've gotten back into I've really enjoyed CrossFit my entire life. I'm getting back into doing those kind of workouts. Jiu-jitsu, I would say jiu-jitsu for me, but I haven't been there for like a week and a half. So, and Ben would call me out, but it's finding those little things for yourself that you can then, release that stress so that you're 100% there for your family.
Yeah.
So,
And I want to clarify something, because there is no right or wrong to this. But if you're a listener and you're not a believer, cool. But I don't think there's anything wrong as a believer wanting those dopamine like effects, right? I don't think there's anything wrong with that. And I wouldn't even go as far as saying it's an idolization to you unless you can't live without it. Unless you can't be Dan, or I can't be Ben, or you can't be Jordan without that, then that I think is when it crosses that line. But for you to want to seek out these things that give happiness to you, I don't think is wrong. I think, like I said, it only becomes an issue when it becomes something that you have to do, right? And I think that's a clear thing, because I hear that quite often, actually, or I hear it at church, or I've heard it when I spoke at like a youth event. The dopamine or the happiness or wanting to find things that genuinely bring you to a different place, a happier place, only becomes an idol when you can't live without it.
Yeah.
So, and I think that's what I want people to hear, if you're listening to that, like there's nothing wrong with seeking those things as long as you don't put those things above, if you are a Christian, above your faith, or that you don't put those things above your family or your self-help and all that other stuff, your care. But before we move on, I wanted to ask you, I was just putting it together, your timeline. And again, if you don't want to share, don't share, but it sounds like you're pretty open.
I'm super open.
Yeah. So your oldest is 12.
Yeah.
You were clearly living that lifestyle as a father.
Exactly.
Already.
I was.
So kind of talk us through that, because I guarantee you for a fact there's a dad listening right now, or not right now. When we release this, there will be a dad that is potentially struggling with the stuff you're referencing. Maybe they're struggling because of a porn addiction. Maybe they're struggling because they have a work addiction.
Right.
You can be addicted to work, and it is just as powerful as alcohol or porn, because you're wanting to chase money, because money to some people is everything, and it's power and it's greed. So for you, like as a dad, how were you doing some of that to hide it from your kids, or were you hiding it from your kids?
Yeah. No, I mean, they would obviously be the days where you're just hungover and you can't get up. So there's that. But it's like when you start to normalize it at home, when I think about it, that's kind of when the issue, that's more of the issue.
Yeah.
Right. And so I remember during COVID, especially, like we'd be hanging out at our house, and so we would have people over because everything was closed. And so what we're doing, we're drinking at the pool. Right. And I went through this phase during then where I was like, you know, I would have a little vape every once in a while, and I was like trying to sneak off and take a hit, you know. And then I was also like starting to microdose stuff because I was like in vogue at the time, microdosing mushrooms, as well as like just a little bit of pot or gummies. Remember, it's like the gummy craze, and that's still going on, right? So, you know, like your kids aren't dumb, and they see that, and then they see how you act. Yeah. And now I see, now that I don't do that anymore, now I see like some kids, like generationally, how they've been affected when they are around that as adults. And it's like a generational curse almost. Yeah. It's like, my parents like to drink a lot, and that's why I had a problem. And that's why maybe, you know, they had to go through recovery or something like that. It's like at the time, it's not something like I was super aware of until I was on the other side of it. And what I want to share with my kids now, and I'm open to this, is just like, hey, your dad made mistakes. This is how I used to live, but I want to show you how you should be living. But you kind of needed to see both, if that makes sense. And I think they're mature enough to see that, because we always say it's like, hey, don't judge the person about like what they were. Judge them like based on like kind of where they're going and where they are today, if that makes sense. So I think my kids they look at me the way I am now. They don't look at me the way I was. But what's freaking scary is thinking, hey, if I kept perpetuating this, like what could it have led to? And honestly, like, okay, like the wages of sin is death. Right. And so let's say I almost can see this like path that almost formed. And I guarantee you all these things would have eventually ruined my marriage.
Probably.
100%. In some way, it would be either my wife got fed up, or this is probably the worst thing. You're in the wrong place at the wrong time with the wrong person in the wrong state of mind. And once you go down that path, there's no turning back, because God did not design us to be like that, right? To live like that. So it's like it would ruin your marriage one way or another. And maybe it's not something like infidelity. Maybe it's because porn is also a form of adultery and infidelity. Yeah. And so, it could be a porn addiction that so it just affects our lives in so many different ways, and it starts to come out externally. Yeah. And eventually, like I could imagine that if I kept that lifestyle up, like eventually there would be growing distance between me and my wife. And eventually that might lead to a divorce.
Yeah. And growing distance between potentially you and your kids.
Exactly.
Or the cycle that we talk about in some of the statistics I want to bring up of alcoholism in a home. Did your wife participate in some of this, or was it just you?
It was just me. She's been always very moderate.
Yeah.
She's, if anything, she just didn't understand. She's they call these people like in these circles, she's a normie.
Okay.
It's like one of those, and this is not normal to be a normie, but we all know them. There are people who literally can manage their alcohol intake.
Okay.
They just drink one drink. Don't want another one. Doesn't matter the situation.
Yeah.
They don't always need it either. They might just have one out.
Just to have it. Yeah.
Yeah. And they just don't understand why you need 6.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, that's so great. That's me now. I could have a drink or not, and it doesn't bother me.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's normal. But most people are not like that. Yeah. Most people are like, oh, because it's a dopamine hit.
Yeah.
So this is why addicts, they have certain personalities. And you can always tell it's like, oh, I have an addictive personality.
Yeah.
And so that same addictive personality, might be addicted to jujitsu. But then also maybe they had they're also like really like alcohol. Right?
Yeah.
It's like it's those dopamine hits. So it's everyone's chasing with alcohol the first sip of alcohol.
Yeah.
So it's the dopamine hiccup from the first beer is the best one, and the rest of the time you spend drinking is trying to recreate that. Because if you really think about it, the best drink you have when you're out at a happy hour, it's the first one, and it's not even the first one; it's the anticipation of having that
And having
first
that
one.
first sip.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You're like, oh, it's so bubbly.
Yeah.
and,
Yeah.
and then you get a little bit of a rush from the alcohol hitting you, but it's that dopamine. And then you spend the rest 6, 7, 8 drinks chasing that.
Yeah.
But normal people, they're just like, cool, that's the one. That's what I wanted. I'm moving on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So my wife has always been a normie. And that's why, I think that's also why she never really fully confronted me. She just didn't understand. She goes like, I don't understand. Like, I don't need to do that. Why do you always need it? Why can't you just like control yourself?
Yeah.
And then she would just leave it at that.
Sounds like you have a fantastic wife.
My wife is very understanding.
Yeah. Which is amazing though, dude, because we need them. Go ahead.
No, I was just gonna ask. So since God delivered you from alcohol and you stopped, how has that affected from then until now? How has that affected you and your family, your marriage, and you think as a dad?
Yeah. I mean,
or has it?
that's hard because this is weird because like I think people will resonate with this also. It's like I wasn't a bad dad when I was drinking.
Yeah.
Like sure, there's like it wasn't like I got drunk and like beat my kids or something like that. Now there were times where I'd be more irritable.
For sure.
And they're just like, why is he all of a sudden lashing out about the house being dirty? Right.
Yeah.
And it's because I'm freaking hungover.
Yeah.
Right. So, but like, it wasn't like, you hear these stories about, someone from the 1940s, being drunk, like we always have someone like generationally, it's like, it's like, oh yeah, this used to happen and there's a lot of abuse going on and it was fueled by alcohol. So it was like, it was nothing like that. I felt like I was always there except for some of those big nights. So yeah, I don't, but I think it's, and here's the thing too, like this is something I need to work on. I spend a lot of time working. And so that's what my kids kind of see. They're like, oh, he's working a lot.
Yeah.
Now, I work from home a lot. So it's kind of like they pop in, say hi, or I try to pop out and say hi. And they kind of get that. But they do notice me always talking about alcohol and its effects because I'll like post about it or I'll talk to folks or I'll share people with my testimony. And so what I think I'm doing, even though like, hey, day to day, am I spending more or less intentional time with my kids? I don't think it's that. Instead, they see me walking more closely with the Lord, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And so they're starting to see like firsthand, like what it means to live faithfully and how our God is a God of abundance and blesses us. Because so now I'll start saying stuff. I'm like, you see, I was like, hey guys, we got into Bristol Farms. Remember, we prayed about this.
Yeah.
God is good God. And he got us into Bristol Farms. Like, that's huge for us.
Yeah.
We're like at this, like, big upscale grocery store now.
Yeah.
About to start delivering. It's like, and then my kids will be like, oh, I see.
Yeah.
I see. And they saw these like, and then we celebrate these things along the way. But I would have never done that if I never like left that life, went off to start this in faith, and just went back and like acknowledged all these things that God was doing along the way with my children.
Yeah.
And like, so when we sit down and pray at night now, like we'll be like, okay, yeah, my neck hurts from jujitsu. Let's pray for that.
Yeah.
Or, you know, like, let's pray for your math class. Let's pray for whatever. And then like almost always, my kids are always praying for the business.
That's cool. That's
Which is
super
wild.
cool.
Yeah.
It's powerful because
Yeah.
they're going to see that instead of seeing hungover dad, you know, and they're going to see that. But I think there's a lot of value in that, man, because there's so many people that go through that.
Yeah.
And we all hear it countless times, but, and not a knock to you, but it kind of is a knock to you at the same time. Not you, like the person listening, of if you're working, you know, and you're gone from 7 a.m. till 6 p.m., and you get home and the first thing you do when you get home is you crack open a beer before you even become present to your family, you probably should check yourself.
Yeah.
And that's just the honest truth of if that's what you're doing, you might want to kind of take an inward look and be like, why am I doing this?
Yes.
I can't even just go acknowledge my wife, my kids real quick, then crack your beer open.
Right.
But a question that we like to ask is if you can take all of those experiences and because none of them are bad in a story. They're actually great. It's because they make us who we are.
Yes.
But with all of that and the last 3 years of your life, what to you makes a good dude and a good dad?
Yeah, I've been thinking about this one.
I think honestly, I think it's the most powerful question we ask, to be honest, because we all come from different walks. We all have different backgrounds. We still currently all deal with different things. And I think it's powerful because each one of us bring value to that.
Yeah.
I'm going to give you a half second to think about that because I want to point out that I love about your story, and this will lead into being a good dude and a good dad, is that even when all that stuff was going on, like you were saying, I was still a good dad.
Yeah.
You know, like you're not just, I mean, there's a lot of people out there that are struggling with alcoholism or you know, you just have your vice and you're not a bad person. You're not a bad husband. You're not a bad dad. You're actually very good. You're probably doing better than most. But are you being the best version of yourself? Are you being the best version of a dad you can be? And then I see that what you're saying is that you're like, I've actually changed what my kids are hearing and what they're seeing in my life from I was being a really good dad to now I'm working on being the best version of a dad that I can be. Mm-hmm. And I love that. And I love that about your story. And I think that's actually going to resonate with a lot of people.
Yeah.
But yeah, being, I don't think having those issues necessarily defines you as not being a good dude, a good dad. But are you
I don't
being,
either.
Are you being the best version of yourself you can be? Because it's not just for you, it's for your kids and for your family and for your wife. But yeah, what does it, I know that is a loaded question, but what does it mean to you to be a good dude, good dad?
Yeah. No, I've been thinking about this. I don't know how, like, I have this thought. I'm going to try to take a shot at articulating it. When I think about this, I break it down and go, okay, to be a good dad, you first need to be a good dude. Because you're not going to be a good dad if you're not a good dude. So if you're an a-hole, you're probably going to be an a-hole dad.
Yeah.
So it's like, okay, well, then you start to ask yourself, well, how do I not be an a-hole? And so if you couldn't already tell from our conversation, I've grown quite spiritual in the last few years. And you know, what's funny is I grew up in church. And I was always like this casual Christian, like you said, like, you know, I dabble in some sin. Still do. You know, but like, you know, lately this whole journey has made me look at that differently and prioritize it accordingly. And so, you know, that goes to say, okay, what does it mean to be a good dude? What does it mean to be a good person? And so, the only good person we know is Jesus, right? And so I was hearing this the other day, like people needed to, the reason why when you read that verse in Corinthians, it's like, love is patient, love is kind, love is blah, 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 blah. It's like, you can read that like 100 times. You're like, yeah, I get it. But like, you don't really like understand it because they're just words. And then like, yeah, I'm going to be patient and humble and understanding and whatever. And, but like human beings need to see that in an embodiment in someone and say, okay, I'm going to be like, remember when everyone would be like Mike, right?
Yeah.
It's like, I heard that on something recently. It's like, yeah, everyone would be like Mike. It's like, well, Mike ended up being like an alcoholic, gambler and degenerate. But it's like, do we really want to be like Mike? But we get it, right? It's like, okay, but it's like, okay, so again, sounds kind of corny, but it's, if I want to be a good person, and there's only one good person I know, and that is the Son of God, who is Jesus, then I need to be like Jesus. And so when I think to myself, I go, okay, what again, sounds corny. What would Jesus do? But that's essentially what it is. So you have to check yourself. You got to be like, okay, and I don't do this consistently, but I have to, right? Or I try to, right? It's like in any given situation, in anything in life, business decisions, home decisions, things like that, you're like, okay, frick, this is what I would do, but what would he do? And if that's my baseline for what a good dude is, and let's say Jesus equals good dude, then that's my answer. Now, I fall way short of that, is the only problem, but that's why that's the message of the gospel. But at least I have that bar. And so what I like to think, though, because I'm an optimist, so I would give myself a little bit of credit, is if I teach that to my kids, to then be that be their North Star for good dude, so that they can be good dads and they can be good dudes, I think that should work out.
Yeah.
I love
Does that make sense?
It does.
Yeah, it's to kind of summarize that, it's not looking at yourself to be the good dude, good dad example in your home, but to point to someone who is the ultimate example. So if you can show your kids that, hey, don't look at me as the example. I will try my best, but look to him as the example. And however you live your life, you keep looking to him. And I'll do my best to point you in that direction. That's how you be a good dude, good dad.
Exactly.
That's what I got from what you were saying.
Spot on. You said that 1,000 times better than
No,
I did.
I took what you said and I just
He got
tried
to hear
summarize
it first.
I got to hear it first.
I was like,
had to
how do I
process
say
it.
this?
Yeah. No, it makes sense
Yeah.
because to people that are non-Christians as well, I don't want them to lose sight of that.
Yeah.
Basically, you have to, if you're a non-believer, you got to figure out who the good dude is.
Yeah.
And obviously the three of us in this room we believe there's only one.
Yeah.
And so if you don't believe that, I don't want to discourage you from that. I would encourage you to find who you think that is and what you think that is, and use those things to, become a better a better dude and a better dad. But
It's interesting though, and think about like anyone you've ever looked up to.
yeah,
They're gonna disappoint you.
because we're human and
We're
we're
human.
we're going to. It's
Yeah.
impossible not to. But it's
Michael Jordan disappointed a lot of
Tiger
us.
Woods,
Tiger Woods disappointed.
Kobe.
Kobe.
Yeah.
Exactly.
LeBron.
Oh man.
Like there's just so many people.
It's a theme
Presidents.
that's mostly basketball players.
Like presidents, everyone. It doesn't matter who they
Yeah.
are. We're human.
Exactly.
Just like the church, we've had this conversation. A lot of people hate Christians because of the church.
Yeah.
And there's a clear distinction. Like the people, we are the church. And we also have to remember, though, churches in today's modern world are created by man. Yes, we worship God and have faith, and we're supposed to be using that as our guide, our playbook. But we got to remember those people in charge are human, and they're going to mess up. So to instantly just blame all Christians for the few bad apples is not okay. And I want people to hear that from us, because that's not what you should lose your hope and your faith on, is because of some stupid choice by a person. And we're all going to make bad choices. We're all going to mess up. Even as Christians, dude, I mess up every single day. All three of us do. The difference now for me and for the three of us, I'm going to speak for all of us because I believe we all believe this to be true, is we now know that we do fall short and how we're falling short. And we're seeking out God and our faith and for forgiveness to hopefully not continue to fall short, right? Like we understand that we are flawed and that we sin, but we need to use these moments to get better. We're never going to be perfect. If we were perfect, we would be God, and then there would be no need to have God.
Yep.
And that's another thing I want non-believers to understand as well, is like, we don't think we're perfect. The ones that you meet that tell you they are, dude, they need to go get choked out or something. You know?
I like what our last guest, Anthony, had to say. He was like, it's a bunch of micro decisions every single day.
Yeah.
And every micro decision, you're just trying the best you can to be like the Father. And I feel like in a non-Christian sense, I'd be in every micro decision that you have, you try to be towards your standard, whatever your standard is. Alberto talked about him and his wife set a standard for their kids outside of Christianity.
Yeah.
You know, you try to be for that standard. So, you know, being a good being a good dad is making those micro decisions every day, trying to put as many of those micro decisions in the good category, knowing that sometimes you're going to mess them up.
Yep.
And so,
And that's what's powerful. And then with that one is, because time flies in here, like as we're talking, it's such a powerful, dude, this room's got something going. Because every guest we've ever had, man, believer, non-believer, we have had just such fantastic conversations where time just like escapes you. But Jordan, go ahead and ask your question.
yeah. So the last question I had told you earlier, if someone is looking for one actionable step to being a good dude, good dad.
Can we change it for this one?
Sure.
If someone's looking for an actionable step to defeat alcoholism,
Okay.
let's scope it that way. What would you tell them? Is that okay?
Yeah, I love it.
Yeah, I think you know, you got to kind of be careful with that though, right? Because the alcoholic is not going to admit that they
For sure.
have dependence on alcohol, because that's also a sign of weakness from
Yeah.
their perspective. It's like, oh, I can stop if I want to. I just do this because I enjoy it.
Yeah, which was me.
Yeah.
Before I realized I had a problem, for sure.
Yeah. So, you know, like super practical. It's, I don't know. I feel like dudes like challenges.
Yeah.
Cut it out for a month. It's like, we've all done it. Maybe you've tried an intermittent fast before, or paleo, or whatever, or keto.
Yeah.
It's like the same thing. Just don't drink for a month. See how you feel. 3 years ago, I did dry January, and then I never drank again.
Dang.
That's literally
The most actionable
happened.
step you could
Yeah.
take too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And sometimes I meet people like that all the time in my line of business.
Yeah.
They'll be like, oh, I stopped drinking, and it might be even like, oh, I stopped drinking in January for dry January, and I just kept it going. Cool. Let's see how long it goes. Or someone might say the same thing. It was like 2 years ago, I did dry January, and I just stopped drinking. I was just like, you know, and they might have like one drink, and they realize like, this is doing nothing for me. I'm just going to not drink anymore.
Yeah.
So I think once you, I don't know, sometimes it's a weird thing to find freedom in abstaining from something by placing conditions in yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, it's like culture tells us that, you know, we're all Americans, right? We all like always want to like rebel against like what people think is like, but it's like, what if you flip that upside down and people told you all this time that they're trying to fool you into thinking that you need alcohol to enjoy a baseball game, to watch a movie, to go to a concert, to have at dinner,
To be with friends.
to be with friends.
Yeah.
What if like, and you actually don't,
Yeah.
and then like go live like that, not indefinitely, just do it for 1 month and see if you can do it and see how you feel at the end. And maybe all it is you know, once a year you have a month off. Your body will thank you for it.
Heck yeah, it will.
But then you're also rewiring yourself, because you're also sitting there going, you know what? I don't really need this. I still enjoy it sometimes, but I don't really need it. And most, like 9 times out of 10, most people will slowly cut down their consumption. They might not go completely dry,
Yeah.
but they'll really reduce their reliance on it. And the alcohol industry is freaking out about that.
Oh yeah.
There's funny, something as you were saying that I want to make a statement here, is that a lot of times alcohol is used as a tool for connection,
Yeah.
right? Acceptance. You know, a lot of people use alcohol because it's going to be in a social setting. It helps you connect with everybody better. And I really think is that most people are looking for is acceptance and for connection. And if more people sat down and did like what we did in this room, had just a great conversation, an open conversation
with a tasty beverage.
With a beverage, you don't need alcohol.
Exactly.
Because I remember when I was, in my early 20s, a lot of the reasons we used alcohol was to get over tough times and have really deep conversations about tough things that normally you wouldn't talk about.
Right.
And you can blame it on the alcohol and the next morning if anyone thinks you're weird. Right?
Yeah.
You just be like,
beer around a
it was
fire.
the beer. But how many times do you see that person that's, drunk off their butt having this weird, deep conversation about things that they're longing to talk about in their heart, but they just don't feel like anybody else is going to understand.
Yeah.
And it's like, you don't need that, man. You can
courage.
do, especially as men, it feels like men, you got to have a beer so you can have an excuse for all of you guys to talk about stuff. It's like, no, we don't necessarily need that.
No.
What
And
you
that's
just
we're trying
need
to-
is you just need to grab grow a pair of balls and be willing to say hey, dude, I need to grab a couple of buddies because I'm going through a tough time and I need to talk about it. We don't have to get drunk to do that. Let's go have a fire or let's sit down and I need to share something that's on my heart that I'm either having a hard time with or struggling with. You don't need necessarily beer to do that.
And I think I'm really impressed by the Gen Z. I think they're really embracing the concept that vulnerability is not a weakness; it's actually a strength.
Yeah.
And consequently, the Gen Z alcohol consumption is like way down.
Well, they're the ones that drink like this stuff, and what's the other one that kind of went popular in Kin?
Kin, Recess.
Yeah.
They like functional beverages.
Yeah.
They're not as good as NA, but
I don't know. This one's pretty freaking good. I had a Kin a little while ago.
It's okay.
It wasn't a bad product. It wasn't a great product.
for all have sinned and fall short of the glory of God.
And I'm not telling you this because you're sitting here and because you're our friend and you're on our podcast, but this is really tasty. And you can take that for what it's for what you want. But I've been in the industry of creating beverages for 15 years.
Oh, yeah.
And I think this is really tasty. I get sampled on things like freaking crazy.
Yeah.
I think I said this to you last time, and I don't know whatever happened, but I want to pick these up for the cafes.
Let's do it.
I think they would be good as an alternative, not to the coffee, but sometimes just as an extra.
Exactly.
Like
It's
I
a
was
take-home
drinking,
beverage.
I was drinking weird teas for a little bit, and then I realized how much sugar was in them. And not to knock them, still a great product. We crush. They told us that we're one of their biggest accounts.
Really?
Out of a coffee shop.
Get out of here.
We sell a lot.
We need
of
to
them.
get some mayonnaise in there.
Yeah. But dude, thank you so much for being open, willing, and sharing. Again, Jordan and I, we just want this to be a space where we can have those conversations. Like as men, we need them. As husbands, we need them. As fathers, we need them. As Christians, we need them. As business leaders, we need them. And the power that comes from sharing these stories and these experiences, I gain something from every single episode we've done, and it's refreshing. It's rejuvenating. It's almost, honestly, it's probably why I've never had to go to therapy is because of things like this, because if you look at my track record, most people would be like, yeah, that dude needs to, that dude needs to go get some help. But we appreciate you. Jordan will link everything. Oh, what is the Instagram?
The NA Beverage Company.
The NA Beverage Company.
Where are some prominent places that you can get NA right now?
Yeah. So online through our website. You
Probably the best version.
What is the website?
www.thenabeveragecompany.com.
Okay.
We're also on Amazon as well.
But it's still better from the website.
Website's good. If you're in San Diego, we would encourage you to go to places like Fraser Farms is one of our big accounts. Or if you're in like South San Diego, that would Valley Farms Market and Jensen's, and then soon Bristol Farms.
Which will be big. Yeah, that's big.
Let's go.
And
Let's
hidden
go.
soon Hidden House.
Hidden House Coffee.
Hidden
Yeah.
House
Dude, I'm
Coffee.
serious. I want to carry these, man.
Yeah.
If you're in San Clemente, Cafe Hermoso, we have the
Cafe
the beer.
Hermosa.
Yeah.
We're at Board and Brew.
Board and
Project
Brew, yeah,
Social.
They told me that they're crushing over at Board and Brew,
Board
which is
and
awesome.
Brew. They love the beers there. Project Social just picked up all the mocktails now. They're crushing over there.
I think
Dana
I would
Point.
carry all.
Yeah.
I think I wouldn't do the beer, obviously. It wouldn't make sense for the coffee shop, but the
The mocktails.
the
for
mocktails,
sure.
I'll do all of
Yeah.
them.
Vibe Organic Kitchen and Juice in Dana Point. Like we do also do well in like health foods places.
Yeah.
So,
Okay.
yeah.
If someone was wanting to reach out about potentially getting you in their store, what's the best way to reach out?
Yeah, just hit us up on Instagram or send me an email, dan@the NABeverageCompany.com. Or you can also reach out via our website as well. Yeah.
Awesome, Dan. Well, thank you so much,
Mr. Jordan.
Thanks for another good episode, man.
You too, dude. Thanks for starting this.
Of course,
Yeah.
anytime.
Thanks for having me, guys.
Yeah.
I'm glad
So
we
super
made it
stoked you
work
came
out.
out.
Yeah.
Anyway, go grab some NA. They're absolutely delicious. We will have them for future guests. We'll have some in the fridge. But,
Yeah, thank you for bringing those.
Go out and if you guys need any help, if you're wanting to quit alcohol or you have anything that you want to discuss regarding that, please reach out to us. Shoot us a DM. If we're not able to help you, we'll link you up with someone who can. But be out there. Remember, be a good dude. Be a good dad.